So Dre had some feelings on this.
I think all of us have some feelings on this.
Yeah, again, I wrote a written piece about this on the website where I debated with myself, the best debate partner you could possibly have on the matter. This sucks. And I'm a Sebastian Vettel fan, and this sucks. Like, there's a reason I called it Alien versus Predator, and the reason why I called it that is because, as that movie quotes, whoever wins, we lose. And I don't want to see Sebastian Vettel in an Aston Martin at Sergio Perez's expense. I just don't. Perez, I've mentioned this before, is one of the drivers of the decade. He has been the undisputed king of the midfielders for most of this decade. And let's not forget, if you want to go into a really emotional standpoint about this, he's the beating heart of the Racing Point team. And let's not forget, he saved them last year when he put the team in administration through his sponsors so that they could basically start over and keep the jobs on the table, basically. Let's not forget...
And that sounds a little weird. I can explain it. Yeah, so what he did, there were entities that were trying to have, at the time, Force India, wound up immediately. Kill the team, kick him out of F1. That's it.
Yeah.
What Perez did was he hadn't been paid. His sponsors hadn't gotten their return on investment. So he put them in administration and then deliberately did not have them wound up.
Right.
Effectively deadlocked the team with his own sponsors to make sure that they didn't collapse.
Yeah,
Sergio
indeed.
Perez did a lot of good for this squad, and it also helps that, he makes a case for being king of the midfield every single year. We know he's good for the odd podium every now and then. Probably good for one this year, assuming, they don't have to rewrite the whole car.
Yeah, he was good for one in the first race until, of course, the safety car came out and he was stuck out there on dead tires.
Yeah, he was one of the few guys that were hung out to dry on that strategy. But, look, and we saw it in Styria. He was the fastest man on track in the second half of that race. He was gobbling time out of Alex Albon lap on lap and set multiple fastest laps until Hamilton...
He was quicker than Verstappen for a portion of that race.
Yeah, he was super fast. And I said on Twitter, that was the best he's driven since 2012. Don't get me wrong, it's probably the best car he's had since 2012.
I think it's the best car he's had, period. After all, it did win a championship last year.
Yeah, so, call it what you will, but the man is super fast. He's a consistently great driver, and more importantly, by all accounts, he's a very good bloke. And
when he has the equipment under him, he will get the maximum out of that equipment every time.
Yeah, and even as the most heartfelt of Sebastian fans that most people know, it would not sit right with me if Sebastian took his spot. Because we all know that Lance Stroll's not going anywhere. But
what if Lawrence Stroll disowns his son?
You see, that's kind of... well, there is that. Sebastian Vettel, you are my new son. There is the fact that it's not just Lawrence Stroll. It is also other investors who have bought into that team. It is the actual Aston Martin brand, of which it's not just Lawrence Stroll who owns it.
Yeah.
And there's kind of the swirling rumor that maybe they will demand that Stroll either be dropped to a reserve role, which actually might be good for him.
So that actually plays a parallel, because just to play devil's advocate, if we were looking back at the first year of Alfa Romeo Sauber and their lineup of Leclerc and Ericsson got demoted to a reserve driver for Kimi Räikkönen, and Ericsson was the most tenured Sauber driver since Kubica and Heidfeld.
Yeah,
and had sponsorship. His sponsors had interest in that team.
Big money. They were putting 8 figures a year into that team allegedly.
Or I don't think Stroll would get a drive at another team for obvious reasons. I don't need to get into it.
No,
but at the same time, it could. If the theoretical lineup would be Vettel and Perez with Stroll as a reserve,
it's a very strong team.
Stroll could learn a lot from those two.
He may not learn as much as you would in the back, because it's different from when you could just test unlimited. It's not like when Alonso was Renault's reserve in 02. It's not like when Massa was Ferrari's reserve in 03. It's different.
The thing is that if Lance Stroll was a reserve, he would have the opportunity to race in different categories that he wouldn't have as a full-time Formula One driver.
Yeah, we've seen him. Was a damn solid sports car driver in his few appearances there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we forget he's a Formula 3 champion. We conveniently forget this because daddy's money.
Drove with Chip Ganassi and
made a good account for himself.
Yeah, 2016 Rolex 24, and the car wasn't competitive. It was the Ligier Honda show that year, but he compared very well to drivers such as Scott Dixon in the same car.
Just say they do sign Sebastian Vettel. There's no guarantee that'd be a long-term deal. It could just be 2 years until the regulations
could just be
change.
one and done.
Yeah, I think if Vettel signs a deal, it's going to be 2 years. One, obviously next year. Two, first year in the new regulations. If things turn out well, maybe he wants to stay, or maybe he moves on to something else. Then you have Lance Stroll as a reserve, and you just slot him back in.
Sure. There's flexibility options here, but I still find it, again, there's been a civil war on Twitter between Perez fans and Vettel fans, and I'm just like, guys, it can be both.
The Mexican government got involved in this.
I agree with you that it would be, because I'm a fan of Vettel, it would be a shame if Perez lost his seat. On the other side, if it's a Perez-Vettel lineup, and next year they're still using the W10, whatever letter it will be at that point, if they don't get caught up by the protest.
If they're Aston Martin, if you're in your first year as a factory team, you want to make a splash like that.
Yeah, you've got big money behind this team. You have what is clearly a very competent technical core.
Right.
Maybe not their own, but whatever.
You don't have any of a struggling car company that needs some dope marketing.
Yeah, and you've got it's a great marketing prospect coming in with a 4-time world champion and the king of the midfield, as Dre put. And then give Vettel the reins to that car. Do what Ferrari wouldn't do and what Red Bull was very successful doing.
The driver is the most important cog. Listen to your drivers.
Yeah,
seriously.
if he goes into that team and he molds it around himself and really directs them forward and up the grid, even if they're not, say, in a championship fight, if he's grabbing podiums and maybe the occasional win out of it, Mercedes falters, it's a damn sight better than what he's got at Ferrari right now, ain't it?
Yeah,
I mean, grab a couple podiums. Racing Point could do that this year. It just takes,
They're doing that right. They're challenging for podiums right now.
The car on race pace, they qualified like fucking trash in the rain. But in race pace, they are legitimately coming to blows with Red Bull. Even Verstappen's Red Bull.
Exactly. Honestly, I think whether Vettel goes to Racing Point might just be in the hands of FIA's technical department.
Yeah, because if they're forced to run the RP19, which had the tub from the RP18, they're probably going to be the worst team in F1.
On the other hand, if it all goes to shit and they still get Vettel, they can have him be the anchor of a lineup at Le Mans.
Yes.
That works.
Because again...
Oh, wait. They canceled that program. Jeez.
Well, they still got the Vantage GT, or GT3.
The good thing about this deal at him going to Racing Point, whether their car is eligible to run or not, they got that massive factory expansion. They already have money set aside to expand their staff.
They're set.
They're a team on the upswing.
Yeah, and that's always a good thing.
I love it.
There's a lot. There were so many people out there that argued about Carlos Sainz. Maybe it was the right call for him to stay with McLaren over Ferrari.